all of them, whenever they introduce new features, always talk about, whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Perplexity, or even Meta AI, right? Talk about the personalization aspect because they now all have memory, so they remember your conversations. And for ChatGPT, you can type, remember that my grocer is Whole Foods, or remember that I am gluten free. And then it just remembers it. So again, and Mark Zuckerberg has said that he thinks that Meta AI will sort of dominate the space because not only does it remember your interactions, but it pulls in all of your social media interactions. So it's an even richer profile, and that people will keep using the agent that knows the most about you.
Welcome to the Retailgentic podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Retailgentic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new Agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkout? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Retailgentic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scot Wingo.
Welcome to the Retailgentic podcast. On today's episode, I'm excited to host Michelle Grant, Director of Strategy and Insights, Retail and Consumer Goods at Salesforce. I first met Michelle about 10 years ago on the e-commerce trade show circuit, and she was with Euromonitor. She's always been a huge wealth of information, and we always have had her on the Jason and Scott show to help us dig into lots of interesting trends. At Euromonitor, a lot of it was around cross-border trade and what was going on in Europe, as you would imagine. In this podcast, I catch up with Michelle and understand more about what her role is, and then at Salesforce, which is kind of newer to me. And then we jump into what they're seeing in their data. Salesforce has two sources of data. They have survey data, which is what we would call stated preference or qualitative data. But then they also have, thanks to the Salesforce Cloud platform, previously known as Demandware, a lot of quantitative or observed data from consumer behavior across their wide range of retailers. Thanks to this data, Michelle reveals, based on some Q1 insights that they have, some details around e-commerce traffic trends, and then picks out what's going on with the ChatGPT and other LLM component of that, how it's converting compared to other types of traffic, which I think is a really interesting harbinger of what that's going to mean as that traffic increases. And then, if you followed Salesforce at all, Mark Benioff, their CEO, is really leaning in on Agentic. So they have Agent Force. They may even rebrand as Agent Force at some time. I don't know. And that's a huge area for them. So she has they're having a lot of conversations with retailers about agents, and she shares where they're getting traction, where retailers are most interested in how they're going to use agents in their own operations. Then we jump into some back into the consumer behavior. We jump into what's going on with some generational data she has that's interesting. And also she surfaces some data that indicates consumers are going to be really a bit cautious with agents at first, because there's a trust element that we talk about that I think you'll find interesting. At the end, I always like to get people out of kind of the current quarter and thinking forward, which is always hard with public company folks, but Michelle was game. And we talked a little bit about where she sees this going. And one question I like to ask is, will we need websites? If 100% of people shop with agents in this thought experiment, are websites this vestigial thing we just don't really even need anymore, or what happens to those? And Michelle has opinions on that I really enjoy. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. And now here is my conversation with Michelle Grant from Salesforce. Hey, Michelle, welcome to Retailgentic podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Cool. So we were just in the green room, as it were. We were chatting, and we've known each other for over 10 years. So you've had, I've been out of it for a while, doing some other things and back in e-commerce, and you have Salesforce there on your title. So I'm excited to hear, how, and you've shortened your title, your official title. I love it because I always give Jason a hard time. You may have more words than he does. I'll have to fact check this, but Director, Strategy and Insights, Retail and Consumer Goods at Salesforce. That seems like a pretty big umbrella. Tell us what you do at Salesforce and how you got there.
Yeah, so if we take a step back, when we first met each other, I was the head of research for the retail industry at a market research firm called Euromonitor. And my role there was to oversee the program that we run, or they run still, on market sizes, market shares, forecasts for the retail industry, 30 different channels in almost 100 countries. But I was looking for a new challenge and it came across a great job description and posting from Salesforce where I could use those market research skills and that industry expertise, but apply it and look at it through the lens of technology. So I joined Salesforce in March of 2020, which is an interesting time to be starting a new job. And that's a whole separate discussion. But here I use those same skill sets to really track the trends impacting the retail and consumer goods industries using a lot of different methodologies. So I get to keep being a student of the industry and sharing my insights with our customers and with the world. So really, really excited to be in the tech industry. But also still do market research and then study the industries I'm really passionate about, which are retail and consumer goods. So yeah, my title is probably longer than Jason's.
Awesome. We'll have to add another 6 words to this. Um, have you got to meet Mark Benioff yet?
I haven't. He did stop by our booth at NRF last year, but I was at a customer event, so I missed that, unfortunately.
Yeah, at least you weren't like just chilling out or like late to the booth or something.
Exactly.
uh, yeah, and then do you get to go to their big show every year?
I do get to go to Dreamforce in San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not. I went to a very early one, but I've heard it's turned into quite a spectacle. There's usually like a really big, like band and a whole thing. Yeah,
Multiple
and he always has
bands,
like really cool shoes and stuff.
a big concert. Yeah, yeah, and the weather in San Francisco is wonderful. So there's so many outdoor activities and activations. It's very impressive.
Now, are you attached to the Commerce Cloud group, or you kind of support these categories across? So maybe you would talk to a customer that's just using CRM or one of the other Salesforce clouds. Is that kind of how
Exactly.
to think about it?
Yeah.
You're in an industry vertical, not necessarily. Now, obviously, you probably do talk to the commerce folks the most because that's your people. But I'm sure it comes up even in a broader sense, given the wide scale of Salesforce's customer base.
Definitely. So yeah, so the clients, have to be in the vertical of retail and consumer goods. That's where my expertise is. But they could have any different product like Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, Commerce Cloud, a combination of all the clouds. So I have to know all about all of our products as well to see how, the trends impact that capability. So yeah, it's really fascinating. My remit is very, very wide.
Yeah, one of the reasons you were one of the first people I reached out to is both you and I are data nerds, so we share a love of data and stats and these things, and then being embedded in Salesforce, you're kind of at you have access to a lot of data, which we'll talk about, but also Agentic is a big focus of not only Benioff but the whole company now. So I'm excited to kind of dig into that. And is that are customers asking you about that kind of thing at this point? Has it rippled into the retail and CPG? Okay,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
definitely. That's top of
yeah, good.
mind. And again, in a lot of different areas that we'll talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about data because you guys have Commerce Cloud and then all the other clouds. So you have kind of aggregate data there. And then you guys also that gives you kind of the transactional observed behavior. I'm not a statistician, but I guess they would call that quantitative. And then you guys also get the kind of opinion type of data as well, because you run a lot of surveys, which is more the qualitative. And that's pretty interesting because it allows you guys to kind of see, what are people saying, which is a little bit of a glimpse in the future, and then what are they doing, which is kind of like what are they doing right now. Um, any Tell us a little bit about where that data comes from, and like the last time you ran the samples and or whatnot.
Right. So yeah, our sort of like you said, the first thing, kind of our proprietary data set is being able to look at what's happening on Commerce Cloud, and we publish a lot of metrics quarterly on our shopping index, and that data is coming from Commerce Cloud. Obviously, we clean it, we anonymize it, we privatize it. To be all sorts of compliant before we publish it, but that does give us a look into what's happening in real time on the platform. It's not indicative of the whole industry, right? Because it is a subset of e-commerce websites, so it wouldn't necessarily, it's a good look, a good barometer, but it's not necessarily reflective of the entire industry. So, every data source has sort of their asterisks, and I want to give that kind of caveat, but I did dive into Q1 2025 data. We've been keeping an eye on the generative AI or agentic trend for, basically since the beginning. And we're able to see the sources of traffic to our website. So to Q1 2025, again, that quarter kind of has caveats. Like Easter was in March, it's in April this year. It was a leap year. It's not this year. We didn't adjust for any of that. And so it was interesting when we look at traffic overall, it was down. And I don't know if it's because of those events or the weather, the fires in LA, unfortunately, but it was a tough quarter overall. But when we look at uh, traffic that's coming from agents like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Perplexity, we see the traffic is like from those sources is less than 1% of all traffic sources. So it's still really small. Um, I did look at the verticals, and it's more impactful for skincare and health and beauty, interestingly enough. And the biggest source of that traffic is ChatGPT. So people are using that to find websites. And it was the fastest growing channel for traffic. It was up 80%. Again, that's from a really small base, less than 1% of overall traffic. But overall double digit growth when overall traffic declined. So that's pretty interesting.
Last week Eddie Q was on the witness stand as part of this lawsuit that Apple's, I guess it's the Google antitrust lawsuit, but Apple got drug into it. And they said for the first time ever, traffic from the Safari integration they have with Google was down month over month. So, and then he specifically cited people using Chat GPT. So it's going to be interesting to see when that starts to spill over more into the retail world. We've heard, and I shared this with you earlier, but we've heard from some folks we're talking to that have reached out to us, and I don't know if it's just bot traffic, but there's a lot of noise out there of these unknown things hitting people's website trying to extract data, and then they can't tell if it's people using the bots and kind of coming from citations or what's going on. So it's a little bit chaotic right now in retail land from what we've been able to tell from talking to customers.
It really is. And so I did look at like traffic coming from search, and it was flat from Q1 2025 versus Q1 2024. But what was up was what was up was social traffic from social media. So I think the Gen AI and the Agentic storyline is kind of overshadowed the storyline that, research from eMarketer, TikTok, and Google itself showed that younger generations are actually starting their product searches on social media first instead of the social engine or the search engines. So kind of Google is maybe facing a lot of different areas where its search dominance is getting nibbled away at.
And I know it's a small sliver, but was there anything else interesting about that traffic? Does it convert as good or better? And I know you mentioned ChatGPT is the dominant one. Is Perplexity showing up at all, or is it like it's just kind of noise in the data?
It's kind of noise. It really is dominated by ChatGPT. And that
Yeah.
when you look at the data as far as like downloads and monthly active users, like ChatGPT is so much bigger than everyone else really at this stage.
Yeah. How does it convert compared to other traffic?
Yeah, it's on par with direct traffic and search traffic, so that's good. It's pretty healthy conversion rate. And I mentioned social media. That there's a whole separate podcast on like why is social media traffic conversion rate so low, especially since the traffic is growing. But yeah, so even though social media traffic grew very strongly, that type of traffic has never really converted very well. So is it a consumer thing or is it a technical integration thing? I don't know. But yeah, as far as conversion rates go, when someone is looking at a chat GPT, it's up there with direct traffic and search. So they're very highly into it.
Yeah, if I were to hazard a guess, it's kind of where they are in their consideration set. So if they're kind of researching, which is social media, like, oh, I was just doom scrolling and I saw this interesting beauty product, they're not really in the purchase funnel. You may serendipitously grab them there, but it's going to be pretty low converting. Whereas if they're researching, if they're going direct to your site or researching, they've done a bunch of beauty care product research on ChatGPT and they're getting pretty close, then they're further down the funnel. It's probably a funnel, some kind of a funnel thing would be my guess.
Yeah, I agree.
How about okay? So that's our quantitative data. How about qualitative? What are shoppers saying when you guys give them surveys?
So we just released at the end of March our Connected Shoppers Report, the sixth edition. We update this about every 2 years. And this year we surveyed 8,350 shoppers and 1,700 retailers in 21 countries. So it's a really big research undertaking. And we did ask about using agents for product research and discovery. 39% of survey respondents said they'd used it for product research and discovery. And of that 39%, 12% said that they were using it frequently. But when we look at generation splits, 54% of Gen Z said they've used like a chat GPT to research a product. And then 20% of them are using it frequently. So again, there's kind of that what you would normally see in generations when it comes to adoption. Gen Z is really leading the pack here.
Interesting. So so it's again telling that. So is the counterpoint that the other generations are still kind of using social more for these types of things, or
Yeah, social or search, direct, could be
yeah,
email. But yeah,
yeah, interesting.
there's a whole bunch of TikToks and Instagram about for Gen Z showing people how they're using ChatGPT for outfit styling or beauty. So it's really interesting that the generation is using social media to teach other people how to get the most out of these agents when it comes to shopping.
Did you so you looked at generations? Did you also slice it by category? Any interesting category data in there?
We did. We asked, kind of what is your interest level when it comes to doing different activities? And the number one result was getting gift ideas, right? So plugging in the demographics of, I don't know. I never know what to get my dad for Father's Day, right? And so you put in, he's St. Louis Cardinals fan. He lives in Chicago though, and you put in all these demographics and characteristics, and then you can get any kind of gift idea, whether it's a book or a shoe or a Cardinals apparel. So yeah, I think that's really fascinating. And the second one that was a really close tie was researching electronics and appliances. And I think that's a little bit of like kind of an early adopter of technology. You probably purchase a lot of technology. Men tend to use Gen AI a little bit more than women. So it could be a gender thing as well. So that was sort of the second most popular use case.
And then the trend we're following most closely is so a lot of this is just kind of maybe compares to comparison shopping engines, right? So or Google. So sending traffic downstream. We have a theory that, and it's right in our name with the agentic part of it, that eventually these agents are going to transact at a higher level and go visit the website for the human, and the human operator will never get to the website. Is that something you guys think about and have a point of view on?
Oh yeah,
Being,
definitely.
being so into agentic, I'm sure you guys think a lot about it.
Exactly. Pretty much everything we do has to have an agentic angle to it. I wouldn't be surprised if Benioff does change the company's name to Agent Force. Um, but yeah, so I mean, to be honest, I thought that this technology was kind of like years away, and we've already seen some examples come to life, like with OpenAI's Operator and Alexa Plus being beta tested. So I feel very smart that we had the foresight to ask consumers about what they would like an AI agent to do on their behalf without any input from them. And what we found was that shoppers want to take the friction out of the experience. So they were very interested in having the AI agent do customer service for them, right? I have this problem, go talk to the retailer and get it resolved on my behalf. Same with returns. If I have to fill out forms or schedule a delivery or pickup for my return, have the agent do it. The fun one that I snuck in was optimize loyalty points, right? We have credit cards, we have loyalty points in maybe with a brand or a grocer, and having an agent sort of analyze where you should redeem your loyalty points to get the best value out was up there too. So always thinking about kind of how loyalty programs play into the retail experience. But sort of when we asked about actual transactions, of purchases made on behalf of someone, um, the interest level there was a bit lower. It was kind of at the bottom of the range. So we asked, would you be comfortable having an AI agent buy complementary products based on what you've already bought, right? So these AI agents are going to remember everything about you, including past purchases. So shouldn't they just, if you bought shoes, shouldn't they just like buy you the socks? That ranked low, as well as just making purchases that it automatically recommends for you. So people aren't really, and then when we ask like, okay, what would change your mind about using AI agents? Like what sort of factors would boost your trust in them? And then the top one was data privacy and security protections, right? Everyone does understand how much data these agents gather on you. So really making sure that that's all secure and private is important. And the next one is the ability to turn it off and on easily, and then approval for any purchase. So like it's cool, but I don't think people are really ready to like completely outsource their shopping without any sort of input into that.
Yeah, they want to kind of stay human in the middle and have the agent go and kind of ping them back and that kind of thing. Interesting. A lot of the new wallets that have been announced have that. They have a consumer facing piece to them where the agent has, kind of like a budget, if you will, and then you can set a flag. Before you spend your budget, I want to check off on everything, kind of a deal. It'll be interesting to see how long we go before people get comfortable enough that they start to take those rails off and whatnot.
Exactly. And maybe, maybe it's certain categories, that you can automate, right? Like I don't need, here's my weekly grocery. I don't need to be approving that all the time because it's a list. I already know what I'm going to buy. I'm just doing a replenishment run. So it'll be interesting to see if there are differences in product categories as well.
So that's the consumer side of things. On the retailer side, are my understanding is within Agent Force, one of the first ones you guys had was kind of in the customer service kind of arena. Has that worked its way into your vertical at all, or is that and are people actively kind of researching what it would look like to have, you know, and I think your model is to just kind of have them on the team, not have them take over everything, because there's this company Klarna that went all in on it, and then they found the agents weren't handling a lot of the human edge cases that kind of happen very well. So what have you seen on as far as retailers adopting agentic for their operations?
Definitely. It's more for those low level repetitive tasks that don't really need a human to answer it. So, for service, for retailers, the biggest inquiry you get is where's my order? You can program an agent in Service Cloud to answer that, and you don't need a person to do that at all. Um, we've seen people, build in sort of FAQ, like their FAQs into service agents. So any sort of frequently asked questions, maybe it's about warranty or your subscription policy or even your return policy, the non-human agent just answers that right away. So we're seeing a lot of the kind of really straightforward, low level, repetitive questions that you get being automated by in that agent. And then anything that's more complex, then the agent hands it over to the person. And I think what is missing in that conversation is that when the actual person gets that inquiry, the agent summarizes the case, has already pulled up all of the information on the person, what orders are open, what's their loyalty status, have they complained before about this issue, right? So when the person gets to talk to a service agent, that service agent has been briefed and knows what's going on and doesn't have to toggle through a million screens or like search for what the history was. So the conversation is much faster, much more personalized, much more engaging because that agent, the AI agent, I always like
Yeah, human and AI. Yeah.
has prepped the person really well. And so we've seen great success that this increases productivity for the service agent. It makes their job easier because a lot of that stuff has just already been brought to their attention before they engage with the actual shopper. So the it really is kind of working in tandem when it comes to customer service and in other skills that we've seen retailers adopt. It really is about taking out like kind of these manual, repetitive, low value tasks to free up humans to do the more complex or creative work.
Yeah, interesting. Any other areas that I've heard some retailers talk about um, leveraging some agents around maybe like supply chain, and there's some mundane things that kind of happen in that. Kind of like keeping an eye on levels and tweaking some forecasts and things. I know Amazon's got a whole automated system that runs most of their supply chain, and then also I've heard some of the marketing functions where there's the analytics part of marketing can get to be lots of moving data between CSVs and things to get to the data you want and freeing up the marketers. Are you guys seeing anyone use agents there on the platform?
Definitely, in marketing is a big area for agents. I mean, you know, you can basically just have it write a campaign brief for you. You review it, and then it the AI agent will create that customer segmentation, will decide what the promotion that would resonate the most with that segment, what write the copy for the email, and then send it out, and then automate it, and then automatically adjust if it's not hitting the goals that you set it to. So, yeah, marketing is a huge function where there's going to be a lot of productivity gains because a lot of the stuff can be done by an AI agent now. And we do see interest in inventory management. As well as like where do you put your inventory at what time, what area of the country, is it in store, is it in your fulfillment center? The thing that we have Sales Cloud, so we have agents that are one of our other first agents to market. We're all about sales, so having an agent conduct outbound outreach for prospects, but also training agents. So we asked retailers if they were interested in, a training agent for their own employees, especially those in the store, and that rates really highly, right? There's a lot of turnover in the store. There's a lot of things that store associates now have to do. They're responsible for more than just checking people out. So having an agent kind of monitor their performance, provide feedback, or give them instruction very clearly and easily on how to open or close a store instead of them like, flipping through a manual in the back office. Like that's also resonated with the retailers in our survey.
Interesting. Yeah. I wonder, like, even the customer service example you gave, you could see that being in a retailing context, like, so here comes Mrs. Smith. She's, a gold tier loyalty person. And, she previously purchased some shoes and some X, Y, and Z. Being able to have an agent present that to someone in the store right at, very rapidly will is much better than I've been in the stores that have tried this with the tablets and stuff, and it's like super awkward because they're like catching up on it doesn't add a lot of value if you're going to have to wait there 5 minutes for them to poke around on the iPad to figure out who you are and what you're doing. They can never find me either. Yeah, it's my curse.
It's because you only have one T. That's why.
That is, but Wingo's so unique. You would think that would help, but it doesn't. Yeah. How about I don't know if you're allowed to pontificate, so maybe this is like not a Salesforce point of view, but have you spent much time thinking about where does this all go? Like, I've heard some people say we may have a day where websites don't get traffic, that these agents will just be out there. Maybe the website goes from less of a human readable, maybe it has a double, maybe it's a machine readable version and a human readable, because there's going to be a lot of these agents out there doing things, researching and finding products and ultimately buying them. Um, do you think that's where we go, or do you think that's overblown?
I think that is where we go for some people, right? I think it's a little bit more nuanced. I liken it, and maybe it's not the best analogy, but right, we still have stores. Not everything is bought online, and online, desktop is still around. Didn't all go to mobile. So, just kind of looking at those past behaviors, I'm hesitant to say that everything is going to be done through one of these agents, that we're all going to just shop on ChatGPT. Um, Certainly not in the near term. I don't think, what I've seen from their latest release of shopping features, it's not as thorough of a research maybe that some consumers would like. I also like to remind people that shopping for many is like a leisure activity. It's a fun activity. I go back to those recommendations and how people were hesitant to outsource that. When it comes to beauty or fashion, it's personal style, right? I don't think you scrolling multiple websites is not a pain for some people. It's fun. So I'm really hesitant that maybe the catalog version of the website goes away entirely in the near term, given like the user interfaces that I've seen now. But I do see sort of a future where you I mean, we kind of already see it now, I guess, with Amazon Rufus, is what I'm saying, is like search gets a lot better. Like the search bar gets a lot better. You can have a conversation with the website. You can have a conversation on the PDP page too, not just summaries. So the website gets a lot more interactive as far as like how you find product on site. But then I also think both to help the shopper enjoy the experience and, sort of learn more about your products, and then probably also to be found in these agents, is you're going to get a more context rich website, more video, more blogs, more information on the product detail page. And then the third component is just like a hyper personalized experience, right? So when I go to Sephora, when I go to that website and I'm logged in with my loyalty program, they're able in real time to really personalize it. Like these are the categories that I shop, these are the brands that I shop. And so, when I do see something, it is hyper personalized to me, and then I'm able to like talk to it, and there's going to be all this amazing content for me to really sit back and enjoy the online shopping experience, instead of just kind of like, oh, I need this, I'm going to search for X thing, and then whatever results pop up, whether they're relevant to me or not. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my like vision of the website. It stays, there are product catalogs, heavy on content, really interactive, hyper personalized. Um, experiences.
Interesting. Maybe the human experience gets so much better from AI, then people don't want to use agents. It's probably going to be like, if I just need to reorder some replenishables, an agent will be probably it's not going to be the fun part of e-commerce, to your point. But if you're kind of like looking for, apparel or something you care a lot more, then I agree, it's not going to be all or nothing.
Yeah, and it could be like a companion too, right? Like it helps you narrow down some things if you're really overwhelmed by all of the choices and places to go. I listened to your last Jason and Scott podcast, and you were using it in the store. I've used it in the store. I've asked ChatGPT to give me feedback on whether or not these jeans match this top, right? Like it's a personal shopper in the store as well. So I don't think it replaces anything. It can enhance things. And yes, some transactions will probably, depending on the moment, be outsourced to those agents, but those agents will need to pull data from somewhere. Now, some people I've talked to, and I'd be interested in your take on this, is like at the end of the day, you do risk having your website just being a fancy product data catalog, right? So is it just a feed and not? I'm a little bit more optimistic that shoppers do want to have that kind of engaging experience on your website where you can control how you're presented and what storytelling you want to do. But yes, I some people think that maybe you just need a product feed in the future.
I kind of, I've been at this long enough, like you, that we all thought certainly e-commerce is such an awesome experience. It'll go to 90%, like a lot of the Asian countries have, 98% marketplace. Even there, they've even skipped websites and gone to marketplaces. Every region's different, and we're kind of at the 16, 17%, and I don't really see us. We're not like the growth of e-commerce is really kind of relatively slow compared in line with offline. It used to be like 3x, and now it's like maybe 10 or 20% more. So we're going to get into the 20s, but it's going to take a long time at this pace. So yeah, I think it's going to be a mix, and I think what retailers should do. Everyone always has this knee jerk reaction to block stuff and be like, I don't understand it, block it. But you got to go where the customer is, and if the customer wants to use an agent, you know, and they're buying their sixth pair of athleisure from you, and they just know, like, I buy multiples of everything because I don't like to make decisions about that stuff. So for me, a lot of that decision is just like, oh, make my life easier. I want to buy yet another one of these pairs of pants or something. So you just got to meet the customer where they are, and if they want to be on an agent, then yeah, you're just a product detail page and give the agent what it needs to make an informed decision. I think it'll be. I wonder if we're going to have some. We always have direct to consumer and all. I wonder if you'll be able to say to the agent, "Hey, you know, the agent." I think there's going to be an interesting friction between. It feels like the agent companies. Let's just use ChatGPT, but I think there's going to be like 8 to 10 of them. They're going to want the personalization and kind of loyalty to live up at that level. But you're going to want, as a retailer, you're going to want it at your level. So at some point, you may say to the agent, if your user would tell me who they are and if they're in my loyalty program, I could offer X, Y, and Z. And I think there's going to be some really interesting friction and opportunities in there that'll be, and then like the pricing engine, maybe you offer a different price to an agent than a human at some point or something, because, a humans don't love dynamic pricing. It's like we all kind of get it, but like Uber had to turn off surge pricing because it was like had such a negative connotation. So I think there's going to be some really interesting edge stuff there that's going to happen in this world that we're going to have to navigate, and it'll be fun to. And as technology providers, folks like Salesforce Commerce Club is going to have to kind of figure out, how do we help our customers navigate this ourselves. So it's going to be that's where I think the really interesting intersections are going to be.
Yeah, to that personalization point, that's one of the things I really study when all of these news releases come out, because all of them, whenever they introduce new features, always talk about whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Perplexity, or even Meta AI, right? Talk about the personalization aspect, because they now all have memory, so they remember your conversations. And for ChatGPT, you can type remember that my grocer is Whole Foods, or remember that I am gluten free. And then it just remembers it. So again, and Mark Zuckerberg has said that he thinks that Meta AI will sort of dominate the space because not only does it remember your interactions, but it pulls in all of your social media interactions. So it's an even richer profile, and that people will keep using the agent that knows the most about you. And so what I've seen kind of with we just released our personal shopping agent, and in one of the demos I've seen is you can use it to actually replace a quiz, right? Why, you don't need a quiz anymore to figure out what foundation type you need. You just need to have a conversation with the website again about like, okay, this is, the skin, and it can prompt you, right? Like, do you have dry skin? Are oily.
Are you a summer or a fall? What's your color palette?
Women are into using ChatGPT for that, uploading a photo and figuring out what their color analysis is. So I was thinking, like, we see a lot of mobile apps in particular, and retailers, have like tell us about us, because we're like Sephora, I'll stick with that. You have a big profile of like skin tone, hair type, all of these things that I have to fill out, and so fill out rates are generally very low. It can be very buried. But again, like I was saying earlier, like, if you log in, and the technology now seems to be good enough where like it just remembers that I asked the chat that I'm looking for like sunscreen for with a SPF of 50. And so it'll always know that that's what I want when I look at sunscreens. So I think, yeah, there's a hyper personalization component that becomes like embedded in the experience, both in those agents and then in that website. And you can then do really cool things and make the shopping experience more interesting. I always find it funny when I have retailers sending me like men's clothing things because I don't shop the men's category at all. My husband does his own shopping. So there's a lot still to be done in basic personalization, but this technology now can really unlock just kind of this automatic memory of you. And then instead of, filling out a quiz or filling out a profile, you can just chat with the shopping assistant, and it'll remember everything that you already told it, and you can then personalize it both, on the website, but then link that data to the marketing profile, right? And so now you can send me emails that are only women's items and not send me men's items because I've never purchased that from you.
Yeah, and I think they're way more likely to have a chat about that stuff than fill out a quiz that's kind of like a never ending. You get pulled in these quizzes, you're like, oh man, this took like a whole hour. So the just for clarity, the shopping assistant you're talking about is part of Commerce Club. Retailers can put that on their site, and then it I'm sure the retailer can program the types of things that in conversations that it has and whatnot.
Yep, it is generally
Totally
available.
customizable.
Yeah, generally available and totally customizable across product recommendations, service inquiries. Yeah.
Neat. I'll have to play with that. Well, we're getting close on time, and you've been very generous with your time, and I appreciate it. I did see you guys are having a show coming up, so tell us about that.
Yes, every year in Chicago, where I'm based, we have Salesforce Connections. This year it's June 11th and 12th. The ideal time to be in Chicago. Thankfully, it's not in February.
That's so
Uh,
the week you guys have summer, right?
yeah, distance 2 days.
Yeah.
And it's at McCormick Place, and that's where we talk about all of our innovation, all of our products, but particularly for marketers and commerce professionals. So we have a lot of content geared to how to leverage Marketing Cloud, Commerce Cloud. There will be every session will touch upon agents, so you'll be able to get a really good informed perspective on what is an agent and what it can do for you, both in marketing and commerce.
So if we want to see the agenda, we just Google Salesforce Connections 2025 and we can find that out.
Yeah. And I'll be
Yeah.
there. So you can
Yeah.
reach out to me and come
Awesome.
meet me in person.
Yeah. And are you speaking on anything or are you just generally
I
more of
am.
the crowd?
I will be on stage to talk about service and what agents can do in service. And then I have a few roundtables around personalization and loyalty.
I've never been to that. Is it a Dreamforce giant thing? Like how many people, or is it more of an intimate kind of a hanging out with the a small subset of the Salesforce crowd?
It's a smaller subset than Dreamforce. So if I had to guess around attendance, yeah, 5,000 people, maybe up to 10,000. Yeah, it's at McCormick. And so it's a lot of fun. And there's lots of, dinners and happy hours that go along with it. But yeah, it's a great chance to reconnect with people in the ecosystem, both at the retailers and consumer goods companies, but all of our wonderful partners, our solutions implementers, our ISVs. So it is like a commerce marketing reunion every year, whereas like Dreamforce is for every vertical. A lot of developers come and admins come, and it's very overwhelming.
Awesome. Is it one where you guys drop news, or does that get kind of reserved for Dreamforce, or do you guys like announce typically the next year's platform or anything like that that people can? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll make
Interesting. So
announcements around
could be
marketing
some
and
news coming out of it.
e-commerce.
Like,
Yeah, could
yeah,
be.
very cool. Yeah, hopefully more agents.
Oh yes,
Cool.
sure.
Thanks, Michelle. You're welcome. Next time you get any breaking cool news, let us know and we'll have you back on the pod because we love to hear data about what's going on out there as we try to all read these tea leaves of our agentic future and the intersection of agents and retail.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good to be back in the game, and I'll see you at all the usual trade shows. And we'll see. I think we're going to do a little summer trip during Salesforce Connections, but maybe next year.
Okay, great. We'd love to see you there.
Follow, rate, and share to stay up to date with Retailgentic, your guide to the future of AI shopping agents.